Hey, everyone. Happy Wednesday. That's right. You know what it is. It's Wisdom Wednesday. Hello, everyone. As always, I pray that everyone is doing well. Wanted to come on today and give us a word from the Father. Our scripture reading today is going to be a little bit longer than normal, so just bear with me. We're going to be reading from Jonah chapter 1, starting at verse 1. And it reads, the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has came up before me. But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for that port. After paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed for Tarshish to flee from the Lord. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. So, as always, you guys know the Lord gives me a title, he gives me scripture, then he gives me his word. So, when he gave me the title of Stop Running, and I was looking and I said, okay, Lord, what is our scripture reading? And when the Lord took me there, so what the word is saying in the scripture is that the Lord had given Jonah a direct command. And for whatever Jonah's reason was, he didn't want to do it, right? So he ran away and he did not do what the Lord told him to do. And so he thought he was about to do his own thing, got to pay the fare, got on the boat, was like, I'm out of here, not doing this. And, thought he was getting ready to flee from the Lord. And a great wind storm came about to the point that, the ship was in a position of where it was going to be broken up. And so the Lord reminded me of how much this is like us in our fleshly lives, where the Lord gives us a direct command to do something. And then we're like, nope, not today, Lord. So it's like the Lord has given us a calling over our lives and an instruction over our lives. And a lot of the times what we fail to realize is that the calling is not just for us. The calling is for the kingdom. And so God is wanting to use it for something else, something greater, someone else, somewhere else. And so when we run from the calling, we can sometimes find ourselves in the space like Jonah, where things begins to fall apart, or everything is just wreaking havoc everywhere we look. And God is saying, hey, I never told you to be there in the first place. I gave you a direct order to be over here. I told you to be over on Warrensville Center Road, and you all the way over here on Northfield. Meanwhile, while we didn't got on Northfield, a big accident then happened, and the Lord said, I never told you to be there in the first place. So it's not, and I want to be clear that it's not so much that God is just saying, okay, you didn't do what I said, and so now this is what I'm about to bring upon you. Sometimes God calls us into a space. He calls us out of relationships. He calls us to let go of jobs. He causes us to, to do certain things. He causes us, to stay in a job. He causes us to stay in a relationship, or that's what he instructs us to do. And when we run away from what he has instructed us to do, like with everything, there's consequences. So, if you have to go to work and your start time is 8:00 and you're showing up every day at 8:30, there's a consequence. So if the Lord is calling us to do something and we're constantly running from the call, it's not that God just always wants to punish us, but there is a consequence for certain things. So in Jonah's instance, where the Lord called him to be someplace else and go do something else, and Jonah decided, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go do something else. Well, in some ways, if we look at it as opposed to God always punishing us, some things God is protecting us. So sometimes when God gives us a direction or an instruction and we choose to go against what he says, we take ourselves outside of his protection. So some things God says, hey, I want you to do this because perhaps God, well, we know that God already can foresee things that are to come or things that are going to happen. And so sometimes God, in his way of protecting us, says, okay, let me send them over there because I know what's going to happen over there. And so in my love for them, I want to protect them. So I'm going to send them this way in a hopes that they're going to trust me enough to do as I say, in order to stay within my realm of protection. And so sometimes when that doesn't happen, then we find ourselves in a space where now we're out of his protection and things happen and we're like Jonah and now we're in a storm. And so there are other times when God gives us instruction and he gives us direction because it has nothing to do with us or protection, but for the kingdom. So he calls us to do something like in the scripture. It wasn't about Jonah. It was about a city. And Jonah decided, not, I don't want to do that. And so sometimes God calls us into a space where he's saying, hey, I want you to go to this space and I want you to go and pray for these people. And we're saying, nah, I'm not going to do that, Lord. And we go in another direction. So we're running. And so God is just wanting us to get to a space in this season of life where we stop running. And God is saying, if you trust me to be your God that heals you, if you trust me to be your God that provides, if you trust me to be your God that gives you peace, then God is saying, trust me enough. We don't have to have the fight or flight feeling when it comes to God, because we can just sit and rest and know that whatever it is that God is calling us to do, we don't have to fear from it. And so we don't have to take flight. And so I just want to encourage anyone that if the Lord has been calling you into a space where he wants you to do something for yourself, if he's calling you to do something for ministry, listen, it's going to be uncomfortable. Things that we do in our flesh, they feel good. It feels good when you do things in your flesh. And unfortunately, everything that feels good to us in the flesh, it feels good to our flesh, but it's not necessarily good for us. And so God is saying, when he calls us to do things, God is saying, look, it's going to be uncomfortable, but if you trust me enough, I've given you everything you need to get through it. And I want to challenge us to stop looking at things that God tells us, calls us to do as punishment, or, you read a lot, you hear a lot of people say, well, man, being a Christian is boring, or it's a lot of rules and I can't do this and I can't do this and I got to do this and I got to do that. But again, as I said, it's a lot of it is God's protection over us. And then some of it's work for the kingdom. We work for our employers, we work for our kids, we might work for our friends, our family. And in all those situations, we're not necessarily always getting paid. I know when you work for these kids, you're not getting paid, okay? But when we work for our jobs, we may get paid. But God is saying, who greater to work for than me? And so I just want to challenge us to change our mindset on how we view the things that God calls us to do or calls us not to do as being punishment or being rules or being boring, because these are all God's way of protecting us and for using us. I don't know about you guys, but I count it all joy that God decided to use me, this girl from Garfield, whose mama used to be calling because I was skipping curfew, calling, looking, trying to see where I was at, to be sitting here before you all today sharing his word. I count that all joy that he decided to use me. So I know that for many of us, at times we can feel unworthy. And so that's what causes us to run, because we're running from the call. We're like, nah, he wasn't talking to me. He's not calling me to do that. Oh, no, Lord, that look a little bit scary. Oh, no, Lord, I don't want to leave that relationship. I've been in it too long. Oh, no, Lord, I don't want to leave that job and start all over. Or, oh, Lord, I'm ready to leave this job and start all over. Oh, Lord, it's too much in this relationship. But whatever it is, that you find yourself, that we find ourselves in a space of running from, I just want to challenge us in this season to really just trust God to do what only he can do. He is going to equip us with everything that we need in this season to stand in the call that he has given us. Last week we talked about don't give up the fight. And so, this kind of goes along with that somewhat. But God is just saying, hey, whatever it is that I instruct you to do, don't run from it. Embrace it and allow me to show you. I don't know about you guys, but ever since I have trusted him, I stepped out. I've brought before you the Wisdom Wednesday that he's given me. He has never failed me yet. He has always given me a message to deliver that was for myself, that I have had many of you contact me and share and say, man, I needed that word today. So I just want to encourage us that if you just give it a try, that you'll see that on the other side, you'll say, oh, I'm so glad I did that. I'm so glad that I didn't run from that. So I pray that this has helped someone that the Lord has been speaking to and asking you to, calling you to do something. And you or myself or any of us have been running from. And I am challenging us to trust in God and no longer run from the things of God, from the messages of God, from the requests of God. All right, guys, this has been our Wisdom Wednesday. Blessings with a red heart, LB.